Welcome back to Movie Flix. Today we are going to recap 2015 romantic drama movie titled Natasha. A forbidden romance develops in Toronto between a 16-year-old Russian Jewish immigrant and his 14-year-old cousin. But before we begin, please consider subscribing to our channel. Now, without wasting any further time, let's begin, shall we? The movie begins with the appearance of Mark, a 16-year-old boy who was partying with friends at night. Now Mark attempts to get closer to a girl, but if that girls leave, then Mark goes to his house as well. Mark watches an adult video at home before going to bed. His mother comes to pick him up in the morning. She informs Mark that your uncle and Gina are on their way. Following that, Mark's uncle and Gina arrive at Mark's house. When Gina, who was from Russia, was serving food to everyone, Mark began staring at her, and Mark's sister began telling Mark how everyone was staring at her. Only because of Gina's dress would her mother show up, and she tells them that it might be Russian fashion and that we shouldn't judge anyone based on their clothes. We discover that Gina is already married with a daughter named Natasha. Gina travels to Russia to retrieve her. When she returns, everyone goes to the airport to meet her, which is where Mark first meets Natasha, who was 14 at that time. After a few days, Mark's uncle and Gina marry each other and everyone at the wedding party is enjoying the food. But Natasha is so bored, so Mark's mother informs him that Natasha is bored here. So show her around your home, take it or leave it. Mark shows Natasha both his houses and his room. Natasha then asks Mark, "What do you do here?" So Mark claims that I only watch television in my room. Then Natasha asks, "Did you make out with any of these girls here?" When Mark hears this, he is shocked and says, "How can you ask me such thing when we are only 14 years old? You have no remorse for doing such things." Then Natasha says, "I have done it with 100 men so far. So if you want, I can do it with you too." When Mark hears that, he says, "My uncle married to your mother and thus we are cousins." When Natasha hears this, she tells Mark, "I hate my mom, she is a very lousy woman and she is having an affair with many men." It's over and she has seen everything, but Mark remains silent. Following this, Mark's mother informs him that Natasha has arrived for the first time in this country, so that he must take care of her and spend as much time with her as possible because he does not have any other friends. Mark was listening to his mother's word, but he was well aware of the type of girl Natasha is. The next day, Mark visits Natasha's house, where Gina informs him that Natasha prefers to be alone. And she's unique in that way. If she becomes enraged with Mark, he should not feel bad about it. Natasha's mother calls her out after this, but there is a fight between them. Natasha became enraged as a result of this and leaves. When she leaves, Mark follows her and asks Natasha what is that matter. Natasha then expresses that she does not want to see her mother's face and that bringing her here has ruined Natasha's life even more. After that, Mark takes her to his friend Rufus' house, where Natasha meets Rufus, but Natasha never stops asking about Rufus after that. Mark informs her that her parents have divorced and that Rufus lives alone, after which both of them have lunch together. And after spending a lot of time together, Mark leaves Natasha at home, and Natasha informs him as she leaves that I will come to your house tomorrow. When he was studying Mark the next day, Natasha came to meet him and they both talked for a while before going out on a bicycle. Now we learn that Mark sells bait to his friends. Natasha notices this and asks Mark if she can smoke as well. The following day, when Natasha arrives at Mark's house, Mark gives her the bolt. After that, Natasha accepts Mark's permission and begins using her laptop. As soon as she returns the laptop, she begins watching adult movies that Mark had left unwatched, and Natasha enjoys seeing this and returns the laptop to Mark. Comes up to him and says, "I would like to show you something," and she begins showing him her naked photos. Natasha begins seducing Mark and her clothes begin to fall off as a result of this. And even Mark can't stop her. Natasha then tells Mark about herself, revealing that she began doing all this when she was 12 years old. Her mother was also made aware of the situation and she used to do it for money. And her mom wanted to take the money, which was the reason why their relationship wasn't going well after both of them started meeting every day. And Mark fell in love with Natasha in the meantime and he brings her to the party and travels with her the entire city after a few days of uncle's marriage. So Natasha was staying at Mark's house, both chatting at night then saying good night and went to sleep. Natasha comes into Mark's room after a while and says she cannot sleep. So they both go outside and Natasha tells Mark, I really like it. She says, I wish it was complete life can live. And Mark tells her that this is your home, you can come here whenever you want. Natasha then tells Mark, my mom is cheating on your uncle and she will still having an affair with someone. And she says, I told your uncle but he didn't believe me. Uncle returns and invites Natasha to accompany him, but Natasha politely declines that she will not accompany him and will remain with him. His mother informs him that I know why you want to stay with him, and that at the same time she states that now what you do with Mark. Natasha gets angry and starts fighting with Gina. Then Mark's dad stops them and Natasha is obligated to accompany Gina even if she does not want to. The next day, Mark goes to Natasha's house where she apologizes to Gina and Gina responds, that's not your fault, she is very spoiled girl who has had relationship with many older men. Claiming that you are a child, Gina asks Mark to leave and refuses to let her meet Natasha that night. Natasha arrives at Mark's house with all of her belongings and informs him that she is leaving for Florida. She asks if he wants to come any further. She claims that my mother and uncle divorced as a result of my actions. Because I slept with your uncle, their relationship had deteriorated. I didn't want my mother to ruin your uncle's life. Natasha stayed at Mark's house that night, and when it was morning, Mark gave her some money he has saved so that he can get some assistance, and Natasha leaves with all of their belongings. Here, Mark's family was upset, wondering why their uncle had broken up the marriage because no one knew the truth. Rufus, Mark's friend, was calling him repeatedly but he did not answer. It was still a few days later when Mark went to Rufus' house. He notices Natasha's presence. Rufus informs him that he had called her to tell him the same thing. However, you did not return the call. He says Natasha will be safe with me. But then Natasha appears and begins glaring angrily at Mark. Mark becomes enraged as well and departs. He will betray the girl he was thinking of his love. Up until now, he didn't even consider it. And this is where the movie comes to an end. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, until next time.